Hello and welcome into Betting Life's college football pregame betting show. I am your host, Thor Nystrom, joined as always by the coach, Gene Clemons, and NBC Sports' Eric Froton. You can find those guys at CF Froton and at Gene Clemons. Over the next 90 minutes, we're going to be unloading the clip with our best side bets, our best totals, of course, player props, and also getting to all your audience questions. Type those beneath us and submit those. We will be getting to those periodically throughout the show. So any questions that you have on today's card, player props, anything like that, type those into the chat. And please do us a favor and hit that like button right beneath us. Helps us get the word out there that we're doing this. We really appreciate that. All right, boys, we have gotten into conference play. We are coming off a absolutely wild night of college football. I was going through that Virginia Tech, Miami, the Hail Mary, like the Zapruder film from every single angle that we had, the slow-mos. I was doing the thing of getting my screen as close as I could. Absolutely wild game. Of course, for people that don't know, the Hail Mary that Virginia Tech appeared to complete at the end of the game was overturned on review. Miami holds off Virginia Tech because of that. But we have a lot to get to today, so let's get going. Mr. Gene Clemons, Minnesota, noon kickoff today, travels to Michigan. This line opened at 10. It was then down to 9.5 for a portion of the week. It is now hopped back up over the threshold the other way. Michigan currently, as we sit in the market right now, 10.5 point favorite. What say you?
I look at this and go, when has PJ Fleck ever done anything to make you feel like Minnesota was really like a threat? Like legitimately a threat. I have my issues with PJ Fleck and the PJ Fleck love,
Same.
but the overarching thing for me is if you can't beat an Iowa team that can't run the ball, that can't throw the ball but runs the ball really well, then how are you going to beat a Michigan team that probably runs the ball better than anyone in the Big Ten? They have multiple running backs that people believe are going to play on Sunday. They keep offensive linemen all the time. And now I think they're going to be sold on, we really need to turn this into essentially a single wing type of offense where our quarterback is going to be an element in the run game in 11 on 11, everything that they do. So for me, I'm looking at this and going, this is a Michigan game to lose. And not just to lose, but it's a Michigan game where if they don't beat them by a couple touchdowns, I'm looking at them funny. Minnesota can't stop the run. Michigan runs the ball really, really well. I think this bodes well. I'm going with Michigan. I'm laying the points, and I feel pretty good about it.
Froton, with that line now up at 10.5, do you have any thoughts on this side? And then also any player props on this game? And before you get going, I just wanted to update people. Colson Loveland, we have gotten reports that it appears as though he is going to return for this game for Michigan. Froton, another question I have for you is, do you think that means that Alex Orji will go get more than 45 passing yards in this game?
No. I mean, we'll see about that. Let's slow our roll just because Colson Loveland is in the building. But to allude and to expand on Gene's point, Minnesota's pass defense is really good. They rank first in EPA per dropback, second in net EPA, and they're generating a 43% pressure rate, which is fifth best nationally. So this actually kind of plays into Michigan's hands because they're not going to be throwing the ball much, as we know. We look at what Iowa did last week in a 31-14 beating of Minnesota. Their power run game was simply unstoppable. Caleb Johnson, 272 team rushing yards, 6 yards per carry. And as we saw from Michigan last week, Khalil Mullings, converted linebacker, 17 carries, 159 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean,
locomotive.
They ran 46 times last game for 290 yards. Like, why would they change anything about what Iowa did? I just think it's going to be a classic Big Ten mauling on the for Michigan. And I like Khalil Mullings. He opened up at 80.5 in terms of rushing yards. He's up to 86.5. He scores a touchdown, but that's right around minus 160. So there isn't a lot of, benefit to that. But I don't understand how you take an under on Khalil Mullings at that 86.5. He's going to get fed.
1,000%. He actually Froton at was it Underdog, I think, opened at 78.5.
Yes.
So earlier this week, yeah, I mean, you could get it there. And then with those guys, it's gone up to 88.5. I got to be honest, I got tickets with both those numbers in it on the over. You watched what Caleb Johnson did last week with Iowa against that Minnesota run defense. That was on the road. Iowa was in Minneapolis. Caleb Johnson just ripped him up over and over and over again. And that's when Minnesota knew that Iowa wasn't going to be passing. But Cade McNamara remains Cade McNamara. Froton, you mentioned how good Minnesota's pass defense is. The run defense, here's a couple of troubling stats for you. 122nd in power success rate, 125th in stuff rate. You got that locomotive coming downhill on you. I think that's going to be analogous to what we saw last week from Caleb Johnson. Of course, they have Donovan Edwards there as well. And maybe dump off some stuff to him. The other player prop that I had in this game, locked this one in earlier this week on our bet tracker at FantasyLife, was the under on Darius Taylor, 65.5 rushing yards. Last time I seen that number, it's now in the high 50s. I would still go under that. Iowa shut out the lights on Darius Taylor. Number one, he was in, I think, the low 30s for his rushing total in that game. But number two, keep in mind, Darius Taylor suffered the hamstring injury in camp, missed the first game, and he's sort of been worked back in what so far has been essentially some sort of platoon with Marcus Major. And in the Iowa game, so just 7 days ago, Marcus Major on the first drive and throughout the first quarter was a part of the game plan. They were throwing him the ball a whole bunch, which frustrated me as a Darius Taylor over receiving yard ticket holder.
Yeah,
but
me too.
I like the under on that. One contextual stat there, the Michigan run defense, the last 4 games, what they have allowed to the leading rusher on the other side, 24 yards, 36 yards, 28 yards, and then 100 yards. Woody Marks got the 100 yards in that, when in the last week's game, but an average of 47 yards per game for the lead back on the other team. And again, Darius Taylor, he's been averaging 11.7 rushing attempts through 3 games as he's in that sort of timeshare. So we're going under on Darius Taylor. Gene, moving to the next game. Let's go to the Big 12 now. Another noon kickoff here. Oklahoma. We got 2 teams coming off bad weeks last week, embarrassing weeks. Oklahoma State, they're getting 5 points. Of course, they got controlled, dominated really by Utah's backup quarterback last week. Oklahoma State traveling +5 to the Little Apple, Kansas State in Manhattan. Kansas State coming off their tough game against BYU. They were up, 6-0, like midway through the second quarter, getting late into the second quarter. And then BYU just had this barrage of points, punt return touchdowns, all this different stuff. But Gene, with that line where it's sitting right now, who do you like in this game?
I don't really like either one of these teams, if I'm being honest. Like, I will tell you this. I'm starting to get to the point in the year, and let me take my glass off so that people can know I'm serious, right? I don't know who these teams are. And to me, that's the most dangerous thing in all of sports betting, is when you're trying to figure out who teams are and you're laying your money on them. For me, Oklahoma State should be one thing, but they're not that thing consistently. Kansas State should be one thing, but they're not that thing consistently. For me, I think it comes down to who makes the least amount of mistakes, right? And I think right now, as it stands, Oklahoma State seems to be the team that's making the least amount of mistakes. But I'm saying that with 2 teams that have a tendency to make mistakes. So I'm not betting on this game. For people who know, I'm not betting on this game. But if I'm leaning to a side, I've got to take the points with Oklahoma State, because I just don't know who Kansas State is. And it's been a while since I've actually said that about a Kansas State team. Normally, they have a clear-cut identity and path to how they want to win games. I don't know if they have that this year.
Froton, on the Kansas State side, you have a situation where you badly struggle to throw. The BYU starts putting up points on Kansas State, forced Avery Johnson to throw. There was predictably bad results with that. On the other side, the offense with Oklahoma State, I don't really know what's going on there. Ollie Gordon showed up this year as a completely different player than last year. I wonder if Ollie Gordon privately, of course he'd never say this publicly, is like, why the heck did I not declare for the last NFL draft? He's back now, and here's Oklahoma State's run offense advanced metrics. 122nd in success rate, 123rd in yards per rush, 121st in yards per successful rush, 88th in EPA per rush, 123rd in opportunity rate. I could go on and on and on. The Oklahoma State run offense stinks this year. And I know that they've had injuries on their offensive line. The offensive line's regressed a bit. But with all this being said, we have a couple weird offenses here. Is there any angles that you like in the prop market in this game?
Yeah, as you mentioned too, with Kansas State, much better against the run, which is not great news for Ollie Gordon getting off of Schneid. He's, I think, around 80.5. I've seen, anywhere from 78 to 80.5 over the course of the week, fluctuating. But it's hard for me to take that over. We haven't seen any push from the offensive line from Oklahoma State. But on the other side, Kansas State cannot defend the pass, as you sort of alluded to. 112th, 20% of their completions are going for 20-plus yards, and they're allowing completions at a 65% rate, which is 102nd in the country. Not what we're looking for here when you have a Oklahoma State offense that, frankly, their identity now is that passing game, and they're doing it with, surprising frequency in true Gundy fashion. But as you alluded to with the run game, they just simply haven't been doing it. So if I'm capping this, I'm staying away from the run game. If I'm looking at the passing, I kind of like the under on Brennan Presley. Now, if we look at him and sort of go through his game charts, he is the slot receiver. His average depth of target is 5.5 yards. So he's getting the short extended handoff stuff and even the manufactured touches. But in order for him to go over this total, he's done it once all year, and it took 19 targets where they're playing against Arkansas in that 39-31. That game was wild. So that's what it took. He had 9 catches on 19 targets for 91 yards. Otherwise, 47, 46, and 35. He's getting all the short stuff, whereas Dejon Stribling, injured last year, which is why they had to rely on Brennan Presley a lot more. He's been back, and he's getting the deep targets, and he's getting 8 or 9 targets in each game. So he's averaging 8.5 targets a game. If I'm looking at this and capping it, I expect him to be throwing. I don't expect him to be doing much with Brennan Presley and the short stuff, but I do like the over on Stribling, 57.5 receiving yards. I think they have to target him on the outside to try to stretch the field.
Yeah, great angles on that. Yeah, Froton, I don't know if you saw it. I traded for Mr. Stribling in the 50-teamer.
Oh, you did? Good move. What was the move?
I gave up Jaden Williams from Texas State. It was a challenge trade.
Dude, that's a great deal.
Right?
I understand the volume with Texas State's offense, but so it's there with Oklahoma State too, and Stribling's the one, whereas Williams is there with Hobart. Yeah, good job. Okay,
yeah.
Back on.
Well, Stribling's been really solid this year, to your point, and Oklahoma State, through mere pragmatism, has had to go to the air more. They can't run. And Ollie Gordon, it's like the numbers keep coming down every week. You wonder if next week, now we're going to be in the 70s, and if he struggles again, are we going to get even lower than that? But, Oklahoma State going through the air more. Last week, Alan Bowman, people recall, he started 8 for 22 with an interception against Utah. The pass offense was terrible in that one. But a contextual thing that I wanted to mention, and we talked about this on last week's show, Utah has an awesome pass defense, and they have an even more awesome pass rush. So those two things going against Bowman there, I thought Bowman could have a little bit more success in that game just because of the quick hitting stuff. But Oklahoma State's offensive line, like I said, is a sieve, and he was struggling against what's a very good pass defense. This Kansas State pass defense is not nearly as good, and they don't have a pass rush that is nearly as good either. That would seem to set up well for that timing-based system that Mike Gundy uses in the passing game there. So I like those looks. I'm not betting this game either. I'm with Gene on that one. If I had to, my system's line on this game is Kansas State minus 3.8. If I had to bet this game, I would take the 5 with Oklahoma State. But yeah, we're right on the margins there. So it lines up as more of a prop game, and I love Froton's angle on that. Gentlemen, moving to 3:30 Eastern, Louisville is catching 6.5, traveling to South Bend to take on Notre Dame today. There's a lot of interesting things in this handicap here. And on the Louisville side, we haven't seen them play legitimate opponents yet. They're going to get that today. They have some really interesting advanced analytics on their team. We'll talk about that in a second. But Gene, would you rather lay 6.5 here with Notre Dame, or do you want those points with Louisville?
I can tell you, I definitely want the points for Louisville, and I'll tell you why. I think that the Texas A&M game, I think that the Purdue game, they are fool's gold, and they're what we do. Well, not what we do, but what mainstream media people do in order to continue to build up the value of Notre Dame. Anytime they get a win versus any team that you can put into a Power Four conference or that has a name or that might even have a number next to them, it's automatically Notre Dame is back, right? I don't see that at all. Purdue, limited offensively. Texas A&M, limited offensively. When you see the teams that they play, when they play teams that are not limited offensively, they struggle to get the job done, i.e. a Northern Illinois team that I on this show told you and gave as my upset of the week, right? I think right here is another live underdog. I don't know if Louisville pulls the upset because I think Notre Dame will be better prepared than they were at Northern Illinois, but I'm certainly not liking Notre Dame by a touchdown. Give me that 6.5, and I will chill with that all day. I think Louisville has a really strong chance to go into South Bend and get a W, but I definitely like them to keep this closer than a touchdown.
My line, yeah. So, and getting into the analytics, moving here to Froton, Louisville so far, they haven't really played anyone yet, like I said, but the advanced analytics on their run defense are really, really impressive for Louisville. So that's an interesting matchup against that Notre Dame offense. And then on the other side, Notre Dame's pass defense has been really good, but their run defense hasn't been quite as good. It's an interesting, it sets up for an interesting handicap for player props. Do you have any on this game?
Yeah, well, when we're talking about Notre Dame, I mean, you have to discuss their passing attack or lack thereof. We were blessed by Riley Leonard opening up at 183.5 passing yards early in the week. I mean, sincerely a blessing. That's down to 160.5 is what I'm seeing in most places. So you got a nice little 23 yards of CLV on that. But with their passing, I mean, they're 135th in passing explosiveness. They're the worst in the country, 133rd yards per successful drop back. And they're literally afraid to put in the air because we don't know what we're getting out of Riley Leonard. He doesn't know where the ball is going. So with Louisville, very strong, as you mentioned, against the run, pretty good against the pass too. And they did play Georgia Tech last week and handled them nicely. And we're talking Haynes King, Jamal Haynes, a couple of quality running backs or, rushers, because obviously Haynes King's a quarterback. But, I'm interested to see how Notre Dame's rush defense bows up. They're only 98th in terms of rushing success rate allowed, 121st in stuff rate. This is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They just lost Jordan Botelho, their star defensive end. And I mean, is that going to affect them? I think it will. So I have my reservations. I actually kind of like where Gene is going with this. And I'm liking the points. We saw what Louisville did to Notre Dame last year. Let's not forget. Louisville handled Notre Dame last year. I'm taking the points as well, Gino.
Looking through this thing, I will, and maybe with how far that Riley Leonard numbers come, Froton, I might be holding my nose and jumping on the over on that. Coming back,
might be on it, huh?
Okay. With it coming
260, 160, it's reasonable.
160, yeah, at that number. Right. Okay. You look at the last 4 games with Leonard, 158 at Texas A&M, 163 against NIU. The Purdue game, he only had 112, but it doesn't really count because they were up 1,000,000 at the end of the first quarter.
Pulled them at halftime. They pulled them at halftime. It was 42-0. That game wasn't a game.
Absolute butt kicking. And then last week against Miami of Ohio, who has a solid defense, 154. So we're right around there. And you would have to assume that Notre Dame, they have to generate more offense in this game, right? Like none of us think that Louisville is going to be wiped off the scoreboard here by Notre Dame. I think this is an interesting offensive strategy game for Jeff Brom, right? I mean, if he has his druthers going back years, what he's always wanted to do, put the ball in the air, force the ball to his wide receiver one. That's a Jeff Brom system. You mix in the run for sure. But yeah, in this game, you look at the analytical profile of Notre Dame's defense, the path of least resistance is on the ground. So can Louisville's, that ragtag running back room that they have, can they generate some offense on the ground on Notre Dame and put Tyler Shuck, our boy Froton, into some more advantageous positions? Because that Notre Dame pass defense is for real. I think I'm with you guys. We can make this a troika here as far as Louisville at that 6.5 number. earlier this week at the 4.5. I haven't bet it, and this is why, like, the 4.5 number, I probably would have gone the other way. But so we're right on the margins there as far as fair line value. But yeah, the one other stat I wanted to say on this: Riley Leonard, 27-41, 266 yards, a touchdown, 1 sack over the past 2 games. So there's been a little bit of that. The 160 number, I might look at the over on that, but the other props in that game, I'm not touching, and we don't have a lot for the Louisville running back room because of the confusion there. Yeah, guys, the next 3:30 game that we have on the schedule here, Oklahoma at Auburn. Now this line, it was Oklahoma -1.5, -2 most of the week. Sitting here live, this thing is flipped to Auburn being a favorite now, I believe, of 1. Let me just check so I'm not misciting that in the moment. 1.5, depending on the book that you're at. We got a lot going on here.
That's a field goal in a day. This was at 2 when we wrote up the sheet.
Yeah, and lots of stuff going on here. So Auburn, Hugh Freeze, bro, why didn't you sign a legitimate quarterback in the portal this offseason? All of us were screaming for it. We all saw Peyton Thorne's work last year. We didn't need to see it again. Apparently, Hugh was okay with that, though. So they begin the season with Peyton Thorne. He had the 4 interception game. Hugh Freeze gets ticked off at him, yanks him for, what is it, kids? Hank Brown?
Hank the Tank.
Yeah. Hank the Tank. Then he has 3 interceptions. So now Auburn is going back to Peyton Thorne, proven veteran mediocrity, but I suppose at least he's a veteran. And then Oklahoma, we got lots of stuff going on their offense. Oklahoma can finally play defense. They have no idea what is going on offense. They have benched Jackson Arnold. That became official earlier this week. And they are going forward with Michael Hawkins, a young quarterback that put up numbers in high school. Very inexperienced, though, of course. And in this game, and this is part of the reason, I don't want to say that it was unfair to bench Jackson Arnold, but if you kept in mind the context, it felt a little unfair that the Oklahoma receiving corps has been decimated by injuries throughout. And I think they're going to be without their top 4 or 5 receivers.
5 I've seen. Maybe it's 4, but
the number keeps going up. It's like the doomsday clock. Every time you look at it, we get closer. We're getting closer to the walk-ons every day as we get closer with Oklahoma. So you have the backup quarterback to begin the season now with going all the way down the depth chart with the wide receivers. And Oklahoma doesn't have great running back talent either. That explains why this line has shifted. Gene, has it shifted far enough?
No. Like, I don't know who would even put money on this game right now. I'll say this. Isn't it amazing that the defensive coordinators that take over head coaching jobs seem to always have quarterback issues?
Yeah.
It's so weird. Except at Oklahoma, they're used to having a defensive coordinator who was smart enough to go out and get the most brilliant offensive minds and bring those guys in there to run the offense and keep their hands out of the way. Clearly, they didn't share that memo, with the new regime when they came through. I don't know why Auburn is in this situation at quarterback, because they have a bunch of guys that all of these sites told us were really good quarterbacks when they came out of high school, but none of them seem to be able to play well when you're actually playing football. I just want to say really quick, shout out to our X community. Over 3,000 people watching right now on the stream. It is up. It's live out there. And shout out to all of y'all making fun of my picture. I know I'm out here looking real wild and crazy, but you can hear me this week, and we'll keep on moving in the right direction. For me, this is a completely stay away from game. I don't want any part of player props in this. I don't want any part of the spread. I'm not even watching this game. This game looks like it's going to be a train wreck from the beginning. And I just don't really like watching train wrecks. I don't want to lean into, carnage out here. So I'll let you guys have it and have fun with trying to figure out who's going to do what on the over and under tip. I don't want any part of this game.
Yeah, that total coming down a bit too. Froton, again, Oklahoma can play defense. In fact, they lead the nation in turnovers generated right now with 12 and 28th in total defense for that Oklahoma defense. But Auburn having all the offensive issues, Oklahoma having all the offensive issues. But do you have any plays on this game?
Yeah, well, Jackson Arnold certainly got the Hawkins Tua treatment, didn't he, last week?
Sure
I
did.
know. I know. Bear with me. That being said, Oklahoma, their offense has just been absolutely pitiful. We've talked about their complete inability to throw the ball, 133rd in completions of 20-plus yards, but it's just bleeding red ink all the page. But what also isn't kind of being discussed is their rushing game has been brutal too. 130th in rushing success rate. This is the Oklahoma Sooners. Like, what have you done to us here? Where is the Heupel days of old where they're throwing the ball around? Jeff Lebby, like that ship has sailed. I think obviously they're going to be running the ball. I can't imagine with 5 receivers out that, and Michael Hawkins, who is a true dual threat quarterback, that's very inexperienced putting the ball in the air, that you're going to want to, put this game into danger. Javonte Barnes, if he's going to do it, if Oklahoma is going to run the ball, this is the game. All right. Because we know they're not going to throw it. We've got a dual threat quarterback, and Taylor Tatum, number 2 running back in the country, is out. He's another one of this mash unit we've seen from Oklahoma. That's an issue. So you have just so many guys out. At that point, the completely marginalized Gavin Sawchuk, we might see him resurrected. He might get more than 4 carries. But, man, Javonte Barnes, they're going to have to feed him, right? He's in the low 40s. He hasn't beat that at all, but he's probably getting 15 carries. I don't see if they're going to throw the ball. I'm kind of looking at a speculative overplay there on Javonte Barnes. Hold my nose and do it. I actually like Auburn in this game. I know. I was actually there, believe it or not, at the Auburn-Arkansas game last week. Not only that, Thor, but your friend, Hugh Freeze, I was at the post-game press conference. And you haven't lived or you haven't died until you have seen a Hugh Freeze Auburn press conference. The long faces in that room, the sadness. It was a funeral of sorts. I feel so bad for the Auburn fan base and what they've dealt with in the Harsin era to the Hugh Freeze era. It has been nothing short of pathetic. But they're turning the ball over. They have 14 turnovers. It's 133rd in the country. I feel like you can't possibly continue to be this inept when playing as well as they are. Like, they've been good. 6th in yards per successful play. 5th in yards of 20-plus plays. I just think Auburn gets off the schneid, plays a game that is somewhat conservative. I know that's almost impossible with Peyton Thorne at the helm, and we will be talking about that later in the game, but I'm going to hold my nose and go with Auburn here. Money line.
Froton, you haven't lived until Hugh Freeze has DM'd you after you've talked crap about him, made some jokes on Twitter, and DM'd you a 3-word message that says "Stay safe, brother." Period. Which
Hugh Freeze
DM'd to me on October 12th of 2020. I haven't slept since. I sleep with my eyes open. Hugh Freeze is.
We're approaching the year anniversry, Thor.
He's looking for you. He's looking for you.
He might be, but in this game, I might have to back Auburn if I'm going to do anything, just because of all the nonsense going on there with can Oklahoma score any points? I'm not sure about that. Although I do have an Oklahoma player prop. Froton, I liked your angle on Barnes there. You have to hand it to him, right?
What are they going to do? They don't have Taylor Tatum. He's the only one who had a spark. It wasn't Gavin Sawchuk.
It certainly wasn't. And this game doesn't project to get way out of hand on either side, because that would imply that one of the offenses could score. So yeah. I think the game script is going to stay right around there. The other prop that I did, now this is very silly, but with Oklahoma's 5 receivers being out, count them, the Deion Burks previously, their whole passing offense was just Jackson Arnold would get the snap out of shotgun, and then he would just turn to his left and just fling it down the line. It was a handoff to Deion Burks down the line. And then Deion Burks would be trying to break a tackle and, zigzag around and stuff like that. With all those guys out now, all of them, Bauer Sharp, the tight end for Oklahoma from Dothan, Alabama. I'm going over his receiving total, which was, let's see where I got that, in the 30s somewhere, mid 30s. You guys will be able to find it out there. Actually, let me see here. I got him at 31.5. I would have gone up to the mid-30s. So the last game, he was targeted, I believe, 9 times against Tennessee. In the Tennessee game, 4 catches, 36 yards. And that's when they had more of the receivers out there. 4 catches the game before that against Tulane, 5 catches against Temple. I don't know who else they have to pass to. So over on that, I'm going to go over on Barnes too. And
there was a comment in the chat that actually asked about Barnes, 12.5 carries over Cannon Schrank and Stephen Sharp. I think we probably got to go with that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a matter of math and attrition in the room. So I'll back that. I'll back you over 12.5.
Yeah, if you're the coaching staff there and you know that on the other side they're not going to put up points, why are you going to go crazy through the air with Hawkins, who's making, I believe, his first start, right?
Yeah,
I mean, he played
freshman. I mean,
yeah, did get time in the second half of that game against Tennessee, the fourth quarter there, but yeah, first career start here on the road. So for all those reasons, we're going with that. Guys, we have reached the audience mailbag segment of the show. So let's see. I appreciate that first question. Let's open up the mailbag. And guys, audience out there, keep typing your questions into the chat, and we will get to them as we go. We've got let's see here. R. Stews says, "Good morning, guys." Good morning, R. Stews. Just wanting to get your thoughts on the Arkansas Texas A&M game, leaning towards one way or the other. Gene, do you have a thought on that Arkansas A&M game?
I'll keep it brief. I think A&M still not what I like to see offensively. Arkansas figuring some things out more on the offensive side. I'm a Bobby Petrino believer when it comes to that. And not for nothing, but Petrino was just there. And so he kind of has a pulse on that team and at least like the players on it. So I think he'll know who to take advantage of and who not. I would lean towards Arkansas on this.
And that's a great point. There is some familiarity there. Froton, did you have any props in that one? I know we had talked about, bandied a few about in that Arkansas A&M game.
Yeah, I have settled on one that I'm loving, and it gets back to some of these derivative markets where last year coming into the season we were very nervous about what the props would look like. Are we going to have props? Is the NCAA and that evildoer Charlie Baker going to try to steal our fun? Well, they've gone the opposite directions. It's just flooding the market with them. So you have a lot of these sort of boutique lines that you can take advantage of. I am all over Talon Green, quarterback Arkansas, over 0.5 interceptions. Let me tell you something. What does Talon Green do? He runs around and he tries to make plays. I mean, a true gunslinger. 12 of 27 last game, 11 of 26 the game before against UAB. He flings the ball all over the place indiscriminately. And I love watching him for that reason, but I also love betting his interceptions. 2 interceptions last game, 1 each of the previous 2. Didn't throw one against Arkansas Pine Bluff because, well, Arkansas Pine Bluff. That is happening against Texas A&M today. Bet on the wild man that is Talon Green throwing an interception.
I like that one. My line's right around the last one I seen live was my line in this game is A&M minus 5.9. Probably staying away from the side on this one, but I do like that Talon Green one. Also like the Armstrong, the receiver, his over, what is that, 60 something. Gets a lot of targets there. A lot of targets.
Yeah, and I like that because the more targets he gets, the more opportunity is for Texas A&M, who has a 5.1% interception rate. That's 14th best in the country to take advantage of Talon Green. So
there you go. Stephen Sharp asks Quinshon Judkins, 76.5 rush yards in the prop market. Froton, what do you think about this one? Ohio State against Michigan State here. Should be a blowout, you would think. How does that affect that platoon with Judkins and Henderson? And when did they get beyond that in their running back platoon in this game?
Yeah, well, a lot of this comes down to Michigan State, for me, and what I think they won't be doing. I don't think they'll be able to move the ball particularly efficiently against Ohio State at all. I mean, Aiden Childs, first year starting, coming over from Oregon State. I mean, they have a 56% completion rate. That ranks 113th. I mean, and his interception rate, 5.6%. The 7th worst interception rate in the country, and you're going up against Jim Knowles' Ohio State defense. I mean, I just think that that's a bad matchup for them. And while Michigan State is pretty good against the run, it's definitely what they do best as a team. Defensively, they've been pretty competent, but they haven't played any power run teams that you're really scared of. I'm not scared of Florida Atlantic, Maryland, or Prairie View. And against Boston College, Castellanos got banged up. So they were kind of just a one-dimensional team last week. I'm looking at this and seeing a Chip Kelly, just a double barrel Henderson, Trevion, Quinshon. I think they're going to just be mauling Michigan State, and they'll be up enough where they'll be salting the game away. Give me that over 76.5. Can't help it.
Our next question, Carlos Javier asks us Nebraska -10. Gene, with Nebraska playing Purdue today, Nebraska having to get off the mat, them and their young quarterback, they had the heartbreaking loss last week in overtime to Illinois on a little bit more rest in this game. But against a Purdue team that has not looked good in the limited glimpses that we've gotten to them. Who do you like in that game, Gene, with Nebraska laying 10?
Purdue is reeling. They're not good. Nebraska not as good as people were acting as if they were, because they were able to handle what I consider to be a real shaken up Colorado team. But I think they play better, this game. I think that they have an opportunity to right the ship and get a win. I'm skeptical about laying 10 with Nebraska normally, but man, Purdue's bad. So if I was going to lay 10 with Nebraska, this is the game I'm laying 10 with Nebraska in, because Purdue is just really bad at football right now.
Purdue is bad. Froton, I have to admit, I know that this is a safe space here. I have gone under the Dylan Raiola rushing total again.
How can we not?
We're rolling it forward. This week, the books have smartened up a little bit. Before it was like 8.5, 9.5, 10.5. There was even one week it was like a 12.5 for a little bit. Dylan Raiola, a player who in college finished with like negative a bazillion rushing yards because he doesn't like to leave the pocket at all. And then whatever your sack yardage is in college, high school, it's just counted against you in the rushing total. But this week, the Bucs have smartened up. They are now putting a 4.5 total on him. Last week, Dylan Raiola had the 8.5 yard rushing total. Froton, do you know how many rushing yards Dylan Raiola finished with in that Illinois game?
All right, this is off the top of my head. I'm going to go with -42.
-52.
Damn it!
We only won that bet by 60.5 yards. So I'm going under on that. Froton, did you have any other player props from Nebraska Purdue or anything?
Yeah, a little. Well, obviously Dylan Raiola's rushing yard, as is customary. However, let's give a little props to Purdue, right? What is the one thing that Purdue can do? It's rush the passer. They rank 3rd nationally with a 12% sack rate per dropback. 3rd nationally with a 47% pressure rate. Wow. So sacks per pressure. That's outrageous. When Purdue brings it, they get home. And we know that Nebraska likes to throw the ball. And to Dylan Raiola's credit, I mean, he's completing 72.4% of his passes.
Great passer. Yeah.
I mean, even though they're not particularly explosive, he's not making mistakes. And for a freshman quarterback, I mean, it's everything you want to see. And as we alluded to with Purdue, I really don't have to belabor this point. But Purdue it's been absolutely pathetic every time I've watched them. We talked about Notre Dame last week, 38-21. They got beat up by a totally retooling Oregon State team that lost their entire coaching staff and all their talent off the offensive side. I think this is the most mispriced game on the entire slate. I think this is a massacre. Give me Nebraska.
Wow. Coming in strong. Next one, let's see. Colby asks us, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name, but Colby asks us, hoping you can touch on a sicko game. Oh, we would love to. Eastern Michigan against Kent State, with Kent State down 2 quarterbacks. Chris Creighton is an awesome head coach and a great against the spread record. I love Chris Creighton. Chris Creighton is one of my favorite. Creighton, he reminds me of Frank Solich, right? Another longtime MAC guy who got his opportunity later in life. Solich obviously started at Nebraska, but like guys that later in life, now we're in the MAC and they just Moneyball wins. It doesn't really matter what their rosters are. EMU's roster last year absolutely stunk, and he somehow dragged them to a bowl game. I also love the beard. I also love they have the sledgehammer with the thing, and we need Maction back immediately. But Gene, did you have any thoughts on this pre-Maction action?
Yeah, I have thoughts. I just always go with the over in action, right? Like they just tend to always score points in these games. But seriously, I love Maction because you know that these guys are coming out there to play. There's no kind of they don't play keep away in the mat, right? They don't play keep away in the mat. And no ball control. Even for what people used to say about Frank Solich. Frank Solich's offenses when he was at Ohio was a much more tempo look of kind of that ground and pound new age option or read style on running team. So if I'm looking at anything at this game, I'm looking at things going over. I don't care who the quarterbacks are. They're going to find somebody that gets the ball out there. There's going to be points. There's going to be turnovers. There's going to be short fields. It's going to be what a normal MAC game is. It's just a bunch of chaos and calamity everywhere. Unless you're playing Northern Illinois, and then you're just going to get waxed because they're better than everybody else in that conference.
Yeah, we got a line in that one between 14 and a half, depending on the book that you're at. I think I'd have to lay it with Eastern Michigan. That Kent State team, one of the worst FBS teams.
Yeah, I'm laying it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This Kent State team, 0-4 against the spread. Eastern Michigan this year, 4-0 against the spread. Kent State is not covering by 15 points a game. Eastern Michigan is covering by 9.5 points per game. Don't overthink this one. I sincerely think Kent State is the worst team in the country.
Yeah, my boy Kenny, I think
worst
so
in
too.
The country.
Yeah, and I think there's a little because before it was like Tempo's done at least some stuff. A couple other teams.
Jimmy Temple all day.
I would take Kent State. UMass, I take Dr. Blitz over that Kent State team as well. I take a bunch of
UMass, my alma mater. Oh, come on, man.
Hey, listen, I used to love partying at ZooMass, right?
Yes, sir.
I used to love partying at ZooMass when I went to school in Massachusetts, but that football-wise, not very good.
In Massachusetts, Gene? How did we not talk about this? Where'd you go?
Hey, listen, Fitchburg State. Shout out to the
Fitchburg,
bro.
All right. But enough of the reunion. Our next question, Mike Huseman. Wake Forest is a 3.5 point home favorite against Louisiana. Could there be value on the Raging Cajuns? Wake Forest has that terrible defense, in particular on the ground. Quick thoughts, guys. We'll start with Gene. Any thoughts on that one?
The Raging Cajuns always step up to the plate when they're playing FBS opponent. Group of or Power 4 opponents. They're well coached. They're disciplined. They're going to do what they do. I think this is one. The hook scares me. I would if I was going to take this game. I'm not. But if I was going to take this game, the hook would make me go with the Cajuns on this.
Froton, thoughts on that one?
Man, Wooly Woolridge for UL Louisiana.
Yeah.
I like Ben Woolridge. I happen to be a fan. I'm not going to Lloyd Benson him like you would, Thor, but I do like Woolridge. And as you know, Hank Bachmeier, I'm just waiting for him to get injured. When is it going to happen? Because I know it's coming. He's going to do something wild, and he's going to get injured. With Wake Forest, love what we've seen from Donovan Green. So many injuries from him. Real issue. But, dude, their defense stinks. And what do we know that Louisiana can do? Louisiana can run the ball, okay? 21st in success rate, 12th in EPA per rush. I think they can keep it close. I'm going to take the points with Louisiana. Sorry. Apologies to the Bachmeier family.
I would take the points as well. In fact, my system favors Louisiana in that game by 2.1 points. So I see a different favor in that one. Definitely going with the Raging Cajuns in that one. We just have a couple more here. Historical Anomalies asks us weekly dart 300-yard streak question, or is Kentucky's slow pace and defense too much? Gene, do you have a thought on that one?
Yeah, I'm riding with Dart until he proves otherwise. I think that their key to success is passing the ball. That's how they're going to be able to do it. It's on Jackson Dart to do it. He's been doing it. UK, yes, they slow it down. Yes, they play good defense sometimes. But I think this is the best quarterback they've seen. I think this is the best passing attack they've seen. Lane Kiffin, the most imaginative offensive coordinator they've seen this year. I like Dart to go over 300 yards for sure.
Froton, give us your response on that. And also, Cannon Shrank asks us about Amari Daniels and his number at 35. And he said Daniels seems to get about 10 touches a game. So give us your thoughts on Dart in the Ole Miss game, and then obviously Daniels in the A&M one.
Yeah, you're not going to find many people who have more love for Jackson Dart than this person you're looking at right here on screen. There, once again, is his Bowman U.
Your boy.
Red, 1 of 5, autograph 9. Anyways, I am a little concerned about him going over 300 against Kentucky. They play so slow. I mean, we've seen him slow. We saw him slow down a pretty good. I mean, this is Carson Beck, the preseason Heisman favorite, coming in. Slow Georgia right down. I think at the very least, they'll be handing the ball off to Demi Sumo Kongbe in that game. I love his over for rushing attempts. He's at 14.5. I think he gets 17 to 18 right now because they don't have, once again, Trainum's going to be out, and they'd have like 2 scholarship running backs. I'm going to go under on the Dart, 300.5 passing yards. I just think it's the script. I know, I get it. I love them, but I mean, I have a hard time with it. That's not an official play. That's just a lean.
Oh, ye of little faith.
I know, man. I have a lot of faith. I'm invested on Jackson Dart. I know you're killing me.
All right, boys. I mean, we're gonna get back into the games in the afternoon slate, but audience, keep asking. I just saw that we're over 5,000 concurrent live viewers right now. So thanks so much for joining us this Saturday morning. Going to get into the afternoon and night slate now, but keep typing your questions in the box. End of the show, we're going to open the mailbag back up. We'll get back into those. Gene, Washington State traveling to Boise State today. This line opened at 7. Then and I got it at Washington +7 on Sunday. Then on, I think Monday or Tuesday, it was Boise State was then up to 7.5. And I was like, oh man, I should have waited. Then it did the opposite of that Michigan-Minnesota line, comes back down through the threshold. Now currently sits at Boise State laying 6.5. Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be able to get it at 7.5, and when I tried to lock it in, it went to 7. I was not happy about it. But at the same time, I just don't understand the hate from the world for Washington State. They just keep on finding ways to win. Their strength of schedule is better than Boise State. They've beaten they've beaten teams that are in Power 4 conferences, whereas the only one time that we've seen Boise State play a Power 4 team, they got beat. I think that matters. Washington State has stood up, and not for nothing, this is my little nugget. Last year versus that all-powerful Washington team that went to the college football playoff, Washington beat Washington State by 3 points. Do I think this Boise State team is better than this Washington State team? Absolutely not. So I'm going to take those points. I'm going to feel very good about it. I think Washington State not only covers the spread, but has a good opportunity as an underdog to win this game outright. Nobody is intimidated by the blue turf anymore.
Yeah,
those days are gone.
To your point, I mean, not only last year kept that one close against the better Washington team, but this year they've already gone on the road and upset Washington in the Apple Cup. Undefeated, of course, for Washington State, but shown also that they can beat a quality opponent on the road. So I like that angle. Froton, who do you like in this one, or do you have any player props?
Jeez, Wazoo. I mean, what are we getting out of them? They go and handle Texas Tech. Keep Texas Tech to 16 points. They beat Washington, hold them to 19 points. And then last week, 54-52 against San Jose State. All right. Okay. That's what we're getting. We just don't know. But the point is, their defense has proven that they can be a real pain in the butt out here. And they can be a deterrent, especially, kind of on the line. 29th in yards per successful rush. 34th in yards before contact. That's Boise State there on that side. I think we're going to be able to see Wazoo move the ball pretty much at will against Boise State. 114th in adjusted net yards per attempt, 105th in completion rate allowed Boise State. And as we know, from that Oregon game, they'll give up some points too. Georgia Southern put up 45 on Boise State. I mean, it's hard to project a script that's anything other than just a barrage of points. And then on that side, John Mateer is the #1 college fantasy quarterback in the country.
Yeah.
He's running the ball. He's throwing. He's doing it all here. And I cannot take an under on him. I'm going to go over. I can't believe his passing yardage at FanDuel as of last night and even this morning, 248.5. I just think you simply have to take it, given the script, given the defense they were dealing with Boise State. And then on the other side with Boise, it has to be mentioned. Ashton Jeanty this week, the single highest rushing yardage prop I have seen in my entire life. And
Ever.
7 years. 7 years of day in, day out obsessing over college football props. Nuclear at that 179.5 came down. It's actually 160.5, 162. So that tells you just like how outrageous that line was. Where it came down 20 yards. It had to. I've got a cheat code for you on Ashton Genty. If you don't want the 160 yards, I understand it's a big line. However, Prize Picks right now, 27 points is what his current line is for Prize Picks. All right, so that's fantasy points. So he's going to have 2 touchdowns. All right, rack that up. There's 12. He's probably going to have 6 receptions. There's another 3 points. You're just cutting it off, essentially, by going with the fantasy points angle. You're getting all the reception points, even though they're half PPR, and you're getting the touchdowns. Rather than go with the 160, I'm going with over 27 fantasy points if you have a parlay market available to you.
Yeah, my handicap on this, the reason I like Washington State right away in this thing, their defense, it's better against the run than it is the pass, and that is what matters against Boise. Cougars 68th middle of the road in success rate, 34th in stuff rate, though. Their pass defense is considerably worse, but it doesn't really matter against Maddox Madsen. It's not an explosive passing game. They're looking to shuttle the ball short and then break tackles. Gene T gets involved with that. Wazoo's offense, their matchup here against Boise's crappy defense is just as advantageous as you guys were mentioning. Number 22 marginal efficiency, number 10 marginal explosiveness for that Wazoo offense. They can both run and they can pass. Of course, that also explains John Mateer's game. I agree. This is going to be a shootout. Wazoo, they also have an advantage on special teams in this game. Goes, worth mentioning. So getting even the 6.5, I'm happy to take the points there with Wazoo. I think they're live. Gentlemen, the big game of the day that everyone has been talking about all week. First sort of elite game that we have of this season. Georgia today heading to Alabama. This is now a 7:30 Eastern kickoff this evening. Georgia right now live in the market -1, -1.5. We're sort of hanging around there. Gene, what are your thoughts on the game of the day today?
Georgia and Alabama, this game is going to come down to quarterback play. Period, end. Like, it's going to come down to quarterback play. Which quarterback can make the most plays, has the most avenues to a great game? That's on Alabama. It's not even questionable. I'm still trying to understand all of these people who keep putting the Georgia quarterback in he's one of the best quarterbacks in the nation type of arguments. He's shown nothing this year to prove that he is an elite level quarterback at the same level as your Cam Wards and your Shedeur Sanders and even your Jalen Milrose. He can beat you throwing the ball. He can beat you with his legs. He's going to give those running backs more lanes because you have to account for him in the running game. I think that's the math that will lead to Alabama winning this game. And obviously, I think with the board there, the Alabama offense just has a little bit more dynamics to it. And having those extra dynamics to them, allowing that quarterback to be who he is, I just think it's advantageous for Alabama. I think Jalen Milroe finds a way to get it done again. Give me Alabama.
Gene, a follow-up question on that, and this is mostly for the audience. If you're in a scenario, you like here the 1.5 point underdog with Alabama, would you rather take that 1.5 points at -110 juice, or the money line, say, which right now at ESPN bet even money, we have Caesars is also even money. Which would you go on there, just for the audience out there? Would you take the money line with Bama, or would you take that point and a half?
I'm always taking the money line whenever it's under 3, if I believe the underdog can win. If it's under 3 and I believe the underdog can win, then I'm taking the money line because I want all the juice. Give me all the little bit of extra money I can get.
That's where I'm at. Yeah, agreed. Froton, who do you like in this game? And then also, do you have any prop looks in this one?
Yeah, with Georgia, defensively, they're still a top 3 defense. They're rated first nationally in ISO PPP and marginal explosiveness. And obviously that's important because they're playing Alabama. And with Jalen Milroe, it isn't the efficiency that you're worried about with him. It's the explosiveness. He was second in the country last year to only Jaden Daniels, the anointed Jaden Daniels, as we've seen. Second in yards per attempt, 10.3 yards per attempt. And they're also, I mean, when it comes to Alabama, potent on both sides of the ball. But when I'm looking at, with Milroe, and what kind of concerns me is Georgia's pass rush and how he handles it. Last year, 31% pressure to sack rate. It has dipped a little bit, but he's still at 25% this year. And then in terms of his passing grade, 45th in PFF passing grade among 133 qualifying FBS quarterbacks. Now, Gene talked about the quarterback matchup here, and that is going to be absolutely vital. But I am, as I have been, last year, as we know, in all of my Campus to Canton leagues, all 4 of them, I have Carson Beck. I drafted him last year, and I am the stan of Carson Beck, I would say, in this space. I am going to go with my boy. You take Carson Beck to win this game, money line it, whatever it takes. I don't mind. I am gonna back Georgia. I think they avenged last year's loss, and they can harass Jalen Milroe into making some mistakes. But it really is a coin flip, isn't it?
Froton, just with it being the game of did you have any props in this one?
Yes, I have an under on Oscar Delp, 2.5 receptions. Okay, you got Urosic, you got Lawson Lucky, you got Oscar Delp. Delp hasn't caught 3 passes all year. They're going to put him out there at 2.5. All right, no, I have to see it happen. I'm sorry. With a 3-man tight end rotation, and with anybody who's a Georgia fan saw Delp last year, some key drops for him as well last year. I don't think he gets to 3.
I'm on the Froton. I'm curious your thoughts on this. I went over on Jalen Milroe's rushing at 40.5. You mentioned how good Georgia's pass defense is. The way you can nick Georgia is on the ground. That's Milroe's other superpower. Did you have, and Georgia doesn't send the waves of heat either, with the pass rush as well. Did you have any thoughts on Milroe?
Yeah, well, I mean, DeBoer is running the ball at a 70% clip on standard downs. That's 11th most in the country. Milroe's only taken 63 dropbacks in 3 games. So that's dropbacks. That's not passes. That's just him dropping back, and you throw in the scrambles. So in terms of, if I'm going to go with an over on Milroe, it's going to be the rushing. The only concern I have is that pressure to sack rate, because, he will try to avoid the sack, and he'll run out, and he'll sometimes take some deep ones. But if I'm going with it, I'm leaning the over. Absolutely.
Yeah, my line on this game is Alabama -1.5. My system. So, Gene, I'm with you. We're going to be going with the slight underdog there. I'm also going to be grabbing that the money line as well. One thing I wanted to point out here beyond that, Carson Beck. You guys were talking a little bit about that. The numbers look okay. In terms of the amount of time he's played, he's only number 94 in the nation in completion percentage on balls thrown beyond the line of scrimmage. There's a lot of the goofy stuff behind the line of scrimmage there. The accuracy hasn't quite been as good down the field. This game, you're going to need Carson Beck to be hitting passes downfield. It just is what it is. I like Alabama in that one. And speaking of my system and all the projections, both the spreads, the totals, every team's win expectancy for every game going forward on the schedule, there's spreads on every single game. You can find all of that stuff in FantasyLife, the Tier 2 subscription. If you use code Thor20, you get 20% off. It's already pretty reasonable price compared to the rest of the industry. Thor20 gets you 20% off. Boys, we got to go a little bit faster with these last 2 games so we can get back into our mailbag. Another 7:30 Eastern kick here this evening, going to the Big Ten now. Illinois traveling to Penn State. We have a line on this one, 18.5, depending on the book you're at. Gene, who do you like in this one?
Sorry. I think for me, the problem I have is that Penn State never seems to just mollywop a team that people think they should mollywop, right? Illinois is not a bad team. That Nebraska win, even though it was in overtime, is not flukish. Like, they earned that win. They've been a good football team for the past 2 years. This is just another step. Do I think they have enough to beat Penn State today? No, because I still like Penn State. But do I have any faith that Penn State's going to beat Illinois by 3 touchdowns? Absolutely not. Like, they might win by a touchdown, 10 points, maybe even 13 points, but they're not beating Illinois by 3 touchdowns. I don't see that happening. I don't know where those possessions come from in order to make that happen. So I'll take that 18.5 with Penn State. It opened at 17.5 and it's gone up, which means that a lot of people like Penn State. to cover this game, and I just don't see it.
Froton, moving over the prop market on this game. I actually like this game, the props, quite a bit, because having seen Illinois now a couple different times, I can tell you their pass defense, and it has been throughout Bielema's tenure there, but their pass defense is good again. Their run defense, though, not quite as good.
Not good.
You can rip Illinois on the ground. So let me give you my props in this game, Froton. Then let me know what you think of those, and then if you have any other ones, toss them out. I went under on Drew Allar, 219.5 passing yards. We have seen throughout his career, and we'll see with Kotelnicki, in this game, but more risk aversion in games that Penn State is controlling. And then if this one gets out of hand, it ends up being 21 plus points in the fourth quarter. Are they going to try to get their younger backups any playing time out there? Then the other one I went with was on that side of the ball, the Nicholas Singleton over. He was in the high 70s earlier this week. Yep. I think that's ticked into the 80s. Same thing. I'm about just running on that Illinois run defense. Katron Allen, I this isn't an official play, but I tossed him into one or two tickets as well. Just again, the same sort of thing against that Illinois run defense. And the last one for me on this game, to the other side, the Zachary Franklin. The books, I don't know what they're missing with Zachary Franklin. They keep pricing him super duper low, even though Illinois just throws to him. Altmaier throws to him every time he goes back. Zachary Franklin's receptions was only set for 3.5.
Yep.
That's an over right there as well. Froton, what are your thoughts on those? And then did you have any other props in this game?
Yeah, actually, I put Franklin out on the Thursday show as well in that 3.5 receptions. You have to do it. He left the game, but he came back last week. So obviously he's playing and he's fine. I mean, it's a two-man receiver room with him and Bryant. So, all over that with Zachary Franklin. And as you mentioned, with Illinois, they play a clean game. They're second in the FBS with a +7 turnover margin. They're ninth with a 14% 3-and-out rate on offense. So they're at least advancing the ball forward. And we know they like to run. It's Bielema, but Altmaier is pretty effective. On the other side with Penn State, I mean, they're only allowing 3 yards per rush, and a 51% completion rate. I mean, their defense has been incredible. But as Gene sort of alluded to, look at last week against Bowling Green, 34-27 against Bowling Green, Penn State. Come on now. You got to put somebody away every once in a while. And while obviously I think that they will be able to run the ball against Illinois' 78th ranked rush success rate defense, 108th in stuff rate. I mean, I have a hard time thinking that they're going to be able to stop Penn State on the ground, but the script on both sides kind of leads me to think we're going to get a slog. I'm going to take the points and Illinois. I know I'm going to hold my nose. I think they can stay close enough. We shall see.
Yeah, my line's right around where this one is. My system has that line at 18.4 for Penn State. I'm staying away from this side. I got a lot of prop action on this one. I think it's a good prop game. Guys, the last one, we're going to talk about a late night game, Utah and Arizona, and then we're going to get back into the mailbag. So keep writing your questions below, and we'll rip through as many as we can right after this one. Utah, interesting line movement on this game. This one had been in double digits. I think it was up to 11.5 on the Utah side. It's crashed down to Utah -9. There's obviously the questions about Cam Rising's status. Although last week with that young backup quarterback, we were talking about it earlier in the show, they were able to handle Oklahoma State on the road quite easily. This is a different proposition. However, Arizona, they have not shown up as sort of the Arizona team that we wanted. They played some cans here and they got smoked themselves one game. Can they get themselves off the mat in this Big 12 game? Gene, what say you? Gene,
I was muted. I apologize. Okay. I'm more concerned with Arizona. I think we all know we know who Utah wants to be, right? And I always say if I can identify who you want to be, then it's easier for me to bet with you, right? Like I know who Utah wants to be. I know how they want to beat you. And if you look at what they're doing this year, they're beating people that way. The defense has not been as stout as it normally is, but this Arizona offense has not been as, versus good competition. They struggled to score points versus Northern Arizona. Northern Arizona is not a good team. right? And if you're going to struggle to score points versus Northern Arizona, you're probably going to struggle to score points versus the Utes. But you know what I know that the Utes are going to do? They're going to put up at least 21 plus points because that's just what they do. They find a way to get the ball in the end zone 3 times a game, regardless of who they're playing, regardless of how they have to do it. And then they find ways to keep you out the end zone. I could see this being a 3 field goal type of game for Arizona. And if that's the case, especially with that number dipping below double digits, I'll take Utah to cover that spread. I'll lay those 9.
Froton, what say you?
Yeah, with Utah, we know what they want to do. They want to play slow, and they are currently 1-3 to the under. So 3 of the 4 games have gone under. And when it comes to their defense, excellent in terms of suppressing the short stuff. But what do? Utah will make you beat them over the top. And unfortunately, this year, where they're kind of changing over a little bit in the secondary, they're ranked 132nd, 4th worst in the country with a 28% rate of 20-plus yard completions. That is horrible, but they only allow a 45% completion rate, right? So, they're going to test you. And if you can go over the top, like Arizona will want to do with Tet, I mean, that's what they're going to have to do to beat Utah. They're not going to run the ball on them. Utah ranks 21st in rushing success rate, 29th in stuff rate. I don't think you're going to be able to see 15 to 20 carries out of Quali Conley. I think you'll see more out of the backfield of him this game. I'm going to take the under on 67.5 rushing yards on Arizona's running back, Quali Conley.
Love it. Yeah. With me, my line in this game, Utah minus 11.9. I think, probably with where that line's gotten, I think I'd probably lay it if I had to. Not a game I want to get involved with for a number of reasons. Cam Rising status being one of them. But yeah, and I don't think I'm even on any props in that game. It's an interesting matchup. You're talking about Tet and Noah Fafita. It's an interesting matchup, them against the good Utah pass defense, and in particular, the good pass rush. Like you're mentioning, you need some time to get that ball downfield. Fafita can scramble around and make you miss, but Utah gets waves of defenders back there. So that's going to be sort of the chess match there. Fafita trying to get that ball up before the pass rush gets to him and chuck it up to Tet, because that guy has the catch radius of an Indian god. We're gonna jump back into the mailbag now. One last time, if you guys would do us a favor in the audience, we give you any value, please click that like button beneath this. Helps us get the word out. Also, if the subscribe button, wherever that is, you'll make sure to remember that we're on every week at the same time before the games on Saturdays. But boys, let's get back into the mailbag. Let's see here where we left off. Sean Glenn asked us, look ahead line. Ole Miss. Oh, I love look ahead lines. Ole Miss minus 6.5 at LSU. Is LSU getting any stops in that game? Have to imagine it gets above a touchdown. I would agree with that.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly with that, especially with Harold Perkins is out now.
Yeah.
LSU. Like, okay, what's the path here? Yeah, I'm in. For sure.
And by the way, just I don't know if we're going to get to him. Just with LSU on the mind, I'm on the Garrett Nussmeier overs today. South Alabama's pass defense is a train wreck.
Oh yeah. But they could actually be decent enough to hang around though. That's what we like.
For sure. And they run that crazy tempo. Major Applewhite's a madman. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of offensive possessions there. James Wright asks us points galore in Georgia State and Georgia Southern. Gene, what do you think about that one down there in Georgia State today?
Yeah, he must have been at our our bet tracker, our best bets over on the FantasyLive app. Make sure you go and check that out, because you'll see that I had Georgia Southern and Georgia State to go over. I don't care what the points is. The last 3 seasons, the last 2 seasons, the number has exploded over every time. This is a rivalry game. This is a game where both of these teams are trying to get recruits that are not going to Georgia. You know what I'm saying? That are trying to come there. So this is big for both teams. They both have offenses that can put up points. They both have defenses that don't stop people from putting up points.
Correct.
It's a recipe for over all day. One guy that I wanna shout out real quick. Ted Hurst, the wide receiver for Georgia State, is a jewel. And I'm not just saying that because I've seen him play. I'm saying that because I coached that young man. An Adam Smasher alumni. He was one of my best players on the offense and the defensive side. Just 3 years ago, Georgia Southern had a chance to get him. Didn't even offer the guy. He had to go to Valdosta State, spent 2 years there, and now he's at Georgia State as the #1 receiver on their team. And I know he is going to be hyped tonight to try to make sure, or today, to make sure that he avenges people who did not go for him when he was coming out of high school.
It's the revenge tour against Clay Helton.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And you mentioned it, Gene. Both defenses stink. I mean, this game is going to be absolute points galore. Love that angle. If I had to take, now with that line, we're at 3.5 now. I'd probably lean with Georgia Southern in that one. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be points galore in that. Could be an interesting prop game too. I don't know if we'd seen any lines on that one yet in the prop market, but could be an interesting one. Next question, Lawrence Borthwick asks us, Kentucky +16. Anyone holding their nose with Kentucky in that one?
No.
No. I mean, it could happen. It could happen, I suppose. Stranger things, they did a good job against Georgia, but
We've seen both sides of that Kentucky team. Yeah, I'm staying away too. Because I mean, is it the Kentucky team that shows up against Georgia, or is it the Kentucky team that showed up against South Carolina and got mollywopped? I mean, you just don't know, but that's going to inform that one. Marty Chamberlain asks us, good morning, gents. Good morning, Marty. Quick thoughts on Fresno State +3.5 against UNLV. I got 3.5 on my pick-em. Let me see what that line is live, because I also got involved with that the evening that Mr. Sluka stepped away. Okay, so the live line on that one is Fresno State +2.5 or UNLV -2.5 to state it properly. It had come down to 1.5. Now apparently people in the market going back on UNLV. Everyone out there that's watching this show, assuredly, you know that Matthew Sluka, the starting quarterback of UNLV, stepped away from the team on Tuesday. The late night tweet about he didn't get paid what he says that he was promised $100,000 in NIL money. Sluka now gone. I believe I don't know if we've gotten an announcement. I would assume that some sort of quarterback platoon is going to be led by Haj Malik Williams, who was also, just like Sluka, one of the FCS's best quarterbacks last year. In fact, Haj Malik Williams is the career passing leader at Campbell in almost every category. When you look across 6-year senior, Cameron Free, and he can run as well. Cameron Frio, he's a bit more of the pure passer, although he has some running machinations as well. Guys, with that in mind, and UNLV on this short turnaround, putting in the new quarterback, how much does the quarterback matter qualitatively? Or how big is that drop off? But also the short turnaround, a lot of stuff up in the air here. Gene, did you have a thought on that game?
Yeah, a lot of people came out, and wanted to hammer, Fresno because of the Sluka thing, and then I started getting phone calls from people who would know, who said that the reason why that 100K under the table, whatever deal that he had in place didn't get fulfilled is because somebody called his bluff and said, hey, we got a guy here that can do what you do. And so, I think what happened is that Sluka saw the landscape, said, hey, maybe I can squeeze another, because I don't think he's an NFL prospect, squeeze another year out of this, hopefully find another place that will, give me that money. But I think the backup is probably just as good, if not better, than what Sluka was. The bigger issue for me is the running back that said he was going to, hang out. I don't know what the depth looks like at running back. That scares me. But if you were on UNLV before this announcement, I think you should still be on them right now, because I don't think you're going to see much of a change in the production from the quarterback position.
Yeah, I said earlier this week on what I think the Thursday show that when it had gotten to the 1.5, that's basically what my line is on this game. What's the difference between 1.5, 2.5? I'm not sure, but certainly getting the 3, that's where I got involved with Fresno State, took their money line ticket as well. Maybe a half point of value on Fresno right now with where that line's gone back to, but certainly not over a key threshold. Froton, do you have any quick thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'm leaning Fresno State on that. I like Mikey Keene and think that defensively, they can probably do a little more than I think they've shown. They were pretty good against Michigan, and they've been rolling up points since then. 46 on Sacramento State, 48 on New Mexico State, 38 at New Mexico. So I'm going to go with Fresno State. Take the points.
Next question. Let's see. Historical Anomalies asks us, is the weather in Maryland, Indiana, Illinois, Penn State, Colorado, UCF games enough to stay away from passing receiving props? Now, boys, it's time to put on our weatherman outfits and caps, even though we didn't stay at the Holiday Inn Express last night. We have Hurricane Helen. Is it?
Helene.
Okay.
Helene.
Yeah, and that caused the cancellation of, I'm still upset about this, of Liberty and Appalachian State. Because I had all kinds of money on Liberty in that game. I thought it was a perfect matchup for them, and it's been canceled outright. Liberty, I mean, just side note, they've mentioned they've gone out there of, we want to try to schedule a 12th regular season game. Obviously, they have CFP aspirations, but that game will not be replayed. But we also have the weather considerations of the games that are being played today. I can say the one that I have been keen on all week and monitoring it was that Colorado UCF game, because I'm in on both Colorado plus the points, the 14.5, but also the Shadir Sanders. I got on that one early, 299.5 in that one. Passing, it starts to get statistically affected at about 12 miles an hour. If you get over that, and then 15, now it's the next tier of affecting. Once you get up to 20 and above, that's where it's like, throw caution to the wind on that one. The passing games get seriously hampered at that point. The wind in that game, I believe the projected forecast as throughout game time, it was 10 to 11. So we're a bit beneath that. The precipitation wasn't as bad as I think some people had thought, at least as far as the forecast goes. Guys, did you have any thoughts on the hurricane today, how that affects any other games, and if that informed any of your props and or sides?
Yeah, for me, I don't see it being an issue at all. Like, I'm in Florida right now. I'm in Tampa, Florida, which is only about an hour away from Orlando. The conditions here are not bad. There's not much in the way of winds. The hurricane blew through Florida and up through Georgia. That's why they're having issues in the Carolinas where they're trying to cancel games at. But as far as what Florida is right now, it might be a little bit like soggy around areas, but it won't be soggy on that field. They'll do a great job of getting that field ready to go. If you do get some wind, it'll probably be more gust. It won't be consistent winds, and I think that it won't affect the passing game of Colorado, but it's definitely not going to affect the running game of UCF. I'm heavy on the over on this game, so I think it's going to be points galore in this game. And so if you were thinking that way before, like me, then definitely go and check it out on our bet tracker over on the FantasyLife app.
Froton, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, Shador actually presented a pretty good buying opportunity for a little bit there. He got down to like 291, 292.
I didn't get that. I suppose it was speculation in the market, but
I think it's just the people freaking out about the weather. But it was a Wednesday, Thursday thing, So we're clear as a bell here. Other than what would already happen.
It was never throughout the week. Yeah. It never was forecasting these crazy winds or the. Yeah, but anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It bounced. Well, no, that's just the point. It's like there was a nice little buying opportunity at 292. It's back up around that 301, 302 mark, but that was just a mistake. And I still think that's a good over against UCF. My God, that game should be just wheelhouse for a 299.5 over.
Guys, let's jump into Gene's top FCS play of the day. Gene, we love your FCS play of the day. Give us who you're looking at this week.
Yeah, for me, I was looking more out west. I think that we've seen one team kind of separate themselves as far as really being purposeful about dominating when they're supposed to dominate, right? If you look at Montana State, not Montana State, and what they do, touchdown Tommy and all of the guys out there, I think Montana State has been consistent in terms of whenever it's time for them to mollywop somebody, they do the trick. They're playing Idaho State today. They're actually on the road at Idaho State. Idaho State, who they're not very good. They're not very good, but they're really not good against the run. And if you're not good against the run versus Montana State, you're going to get mollywop, because this is what Montana State does better than everybody not named Dakota State. right? Like anyone not named Dakota State, and then it's Montana State. So I like Montana State at Idaho State, 19.5 points. This game will be a 28-point win for Montana State. So 19.5 for me. I love it. Lay those points. Montana State Bobcats on the road, my FCS play of the week.
There we go. I enjoyed watching them in the opener against New Mexico and that week 0. Let's jump over to props. And for anyone out there, we only got 5-6 minutes left, so we are about to give you.
I'll zip.
Open up your sports books now, because we're about to unload the clip on these props. Froton, would you like to do the honors? We got to go quicker this time, but we want to get all those player props out.
I will spare the analysis and get right into the nuts and bolts. Josh Hoover, quarterback, TCU at Kansas. No offense, Thor. Over 24.5 completions. I think he's going to be throwing a lot of the short stuff. Very difficult to beat Kansas deep. I think they're going to have to nip and tuck their way through it. No offense. Taj Brooks, running back, Texas Tech versus Cincinnati. We've seen Cincinnati. Their defense is not particularly good. And we know what Texas Tech wants to do. They want to get him the ball. He's listed at 19.5 rushing attempts. I like that over. I think he gets there in the 20s pretty easily in a game where there should be plenty of points. We talked about John Mateer. Oh, I got one. Abu Sama, running back, Iowa State. Let me give it up to our boy Bainbridge. He isn't here right now. He had a little mold issue at the house. He's selling.
Yeah, he'll be back next week. For folks wondering where Bainbridge is, he'll be back.
Bainbridge will be back.
All the DFS. But yeah, he's got people at his house at the hammers and all that. They're doing work. But anyway.
But this is one that Bainbridge loves too. Abu Sama, under 67.5 rushing yards. I just simply can't, get away from that. That's a beauty. Sort of an unsettled room. We don't know what we're getting there at Iowa State. Demisumo Kongabe, we talked about him over 14.5 rushing yards. I have my best bet. Obviously, I'm going to hold off on Zachariah Branch. We've just found out Makai Lemon is out. He will not be playing against Wisconsin. And since I will be attending that game, and you better be watching out, I have multiple plays. I have 2 games I'll be at today. I'll have a play before each game for you. Zachariah Branch over 4.5 receptions with the other nominal slot receiver and Makai Lemon being out. He's getting 5 receptions. I love that. Elik Iomanor, Stanford playing Clemson. Yeah. Is Stanford going to get waxed? Sure. 4.5 receptions. You get him on sleeper, prize picks, underdog. Oh boy. He gets pounded with targets, and they're going to have to be throwing. He's the only guy they look at. 4.5 receptions. He's getting 5. That's happening. No problem. We talked about Talon Green, and I'll just give you, I'm going to save my best bet, obviously, until it's Froton Torpedo time.
Let's see. Do we do, I know you like this one too, Froton. I can't recall if you'd said it, but the Malik Murphy, we like that over.
Yes. I got him at 241 at open. Yeah. I think he's up to around 253. Where's he at right now?
I'd still go over on that. That UNC pass defense overall, but the pass defense is awful. James Madison got whatever they wanted, and Duke's passing offense this
70
year,
points.
Exactly at home to a J5. It's a downfield ethos with that Duke team, and they have a really good receiver out there for them that they pound with targets and more. Yeah, and so
Eli Panko's been pretty good too.
He has been. Yeah, they even have a freshman that's looked decent. So the Duke passing game good. Going over on that, we like Omari and Hampton as well. Because on the other side with UNC, you don't really have a choice but to try to control the ball, get efficiency with Hampton, because Criswell is a turnover machine. Yep. I went over on Devin Neal at 103.5. I went Kansas running back against TCU. TCU defense bad. Froton, I forgot if you mentioned this one, but the Cam Cook unders, that one has come way down.
Cook, yeah, I put that out on Thursday, but Cam Cook. Last week, 24 yards. They go and they put him at 56. They open. He's still above 50. Fine. Prove it to me.
Crazy. Yeah. The other ones, I did a coupling in the USC-Wisconsin game. I went over the Woody Marks, 78.5. Woody Marks been playing really well. Wisconsin's exactly. Wisconsin's run defense not as good. Wisconsin's pass defense is way better. So that's the reason why I also went with Miller Moss under the very high 290s, wherever he's at, 298.5, whatever. Last couple for me, Curtis Rourke in the game, Indiana against Maryland. Shout out to my boss, Dan, a big Indiana Hoosier fan. Curtis Rourke, 234.5. I went over on that. I like Indiana today as well. I don't think the books have gone far enough in pricing and how good Indiana actually is.
Hell yeah.
So over on that. And then Froton, you mentioned that the Cincinnati Texas Tech game. I love the two-step of the over on Brendan Sorsby. Got him at 237.5 earlier this week. And then Xavier Henderson at 65.5. He's up a couple yards. But over on those, we're getting a shootout there. Cincinnati's defense stinks, but they can move the ball, and vice versa with Texas Tech. So that one's going to be a shootout.
Gene, Sorsby, keep an eye. 30.5 pass attempts over for Sorsby. That's easy money right there.
Yeah, I also went the under on the Sorsby rushing yards. I don't know where that's at now, but like I was doing all kinds of different stuff with Sorsby because it's pass. They're going to be able to do it in this game against Tech. Gene, other plays for you today that we didn't get to.
Yeah, really quick. We talked about Georgia Southern, Georgia State over 58.5. We talked about the Colorado UCF game. I like it over 65.5. Texas State, giving up 8 to Sam Houston. I don't understand why they don't understand that Texas State's the best non-big Texas FBS team in the area. Sam Houston still trying to figure it out. Indiana minus 6.5 over Maryland. Love it. I don't get that. Indiana is great. And I believe in Signetti. In Signetti, we trust. Virginia Tech. I'm sorry, not I had Virginia Tech. That's old. I had Army that was old. But yeah, those are the ones that I like. And since we're here already, and I know you're about to pop up the coach's corner, I'll just go ahead and tell you what my best pick of the day is right now. For me, I look at the Naval Academy midshipmen, and I say that between Army and Navy, it is the Service Academy stimulus package going on right now. When they're loaded and they have their people in place, these offenses are almost impossible for really good teams to stop. And so here's what I'll tell you. Sorry, UAB, but if you can't stop a traditional team, right? If you can't stop a traditional team from running, you have no chance of stopping a Service Academy from running on you. Because the precision and the ferocity that they just keep running these things at you is going to be more than you can bear. You're going to fold under the weight. Eventually, you'll do something stupid because your guys were at the club last night and their guys are doing push-ups in their bunks and putting corners on proper on the pillows. Give me Navy right now. You can get it at -4. I had it earlier at -4. It got down to -3 at one point in time if you can still find it. But if it's all the way up to -5, I still love it. I think this is a double-digit win for Navy, even with them being on the road. This is not a good UAB team, ladies and gentlemen. This is not the defenses that you've seen in the past. It is going to be Navy all day. You can put it on the board.
Yes.
Yep. By the way, I got cut off last week before I was able to give my best bet of last week, which was Army to mollywop those people. And I'm telling you, Navy's going to do the same thing.
I love it. Sticking with the service academies, we don't have to do it. We don't have time for it right now. But the Army and Navy in advance of this, they had made modulations of their offense going back where it hurt them in the year or two before after the cut block ban. Air Force did not, they were trying to stay with the same thing. Didn't have issues till this year. Air Force's talent went down. Now Air Force seems to be in some trouble because they didn't start making those adjustments. I love that Navy offense. They really impressed me. I did not think Navy was going to be this good, but the different wrinkles that they put into that, they're now getting those explosive passes in addition to the run. And then Army as well. That was a fun game against Temple. Temple couldn't do anything to stop that Daly kid was doing whatever he wanted, running around and that sort of stuff. So love that angle, Gene. Froton, your torpedo play of the day.
Yeah, we're gonna have to play Reveille for UAB after the service academies march in with Gene. Yes, with as you mentioned in the pre-show, I almost feel guilty putting this out as a best bet. I mean, it is almost. I refer to
it as stealing candy from a child. This play Froton's about to give.
So when Thor's describing my best bet, the torpedo, as stealing then that's what we're dealing with. And that's what we're doing here. We're going to Auburn again, and we're going to Peyton Thorne. Every rose has its thorn.
Sure
as
does.
The great Brett Michaels once sang and will again, I'm sure, many, many times. But with Peyton Thorne, we know what that thorn is. All right. There isn't a lot of rose. There's a lot of thorn. and that is the interceptions. Oh boy, we talked about Auburn, number 1 in terms of turnover rate in the country, 14 turnovers, and a lot of those come from the arm of Peyton Thorne. Has 5 interceptions so far this year. Only played a half last game. Oh, he found a way to throw an interception. Don't worry. Peyton Thorne over 0.5 interceptions, a mortal lock. It's happening. Just put it in and collect the money as soon as you get a chance. That was at minus 139. I think it's at minus 152. Look, it's just happening. Put it in.
Agreed. That's seems to be free. Auburn loves to throw interceptions. And
free money.
Oklahoma defense is I don't have this stat. Awesome. I had it before, but I think leads the country in turnovers. So yeah, I mean it's just it is what it is.
Everything you want to see in a play. It really is. Yeah.
My Thor's hammer today is the Shadir Sanders over. I got it at 299.5 earlier this week, but wherever it is, what was it? 308. You have the number in front of you. 307.
Yeah, it's boosted up a little bit. I think 308. Let me see.
Yeah, I'm going to go over that again. We've been checking the weather on that thing. It doesn't seem like the wind during that game is going to get up enough to seriously affect the passing game. We all know Colorado only throws, right? I mean, and in this game where you're a 14.5 point underdog, whatever it is, the game script will also be that the entire time. And then the other thing, UCF has a lopsided defense, and I love the prop handicap against teams like this. UCF has a good run defense, which is going to be wasted. They're not going to use it at all today. And UCF's pass defense is terrible. It's absolutely atrocious. Their UCF pass defense, 104th in success rate, number 98 in EPA per dropback. This is a game where Shadir Sanders and that passing attack, they're going to tee off. Now, UCF, they're going to get whatever they want on the ground, presumably. And so I think this thing sets up as more of a shootout. But the passing yards absolutely are going to be there for Sanders. Again, that number went down earlier this week. That was only speculation about the Hurricane. Does not appear that, and Gene coming to us from near where that game is being played, does not appear as though it's going to affect the passing. Other things, Sanders so far this season averaging 335 passing yards per game through 4 games. This is a really good matchup for that passing game. Boys, that's all the time that we have. I hope everyone out there appreciate a record audience joining us today. Thank you so much. We had over 6,000.
6,100.
6,100 right now. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us. I hope that you're able to profit off of this. We've had a couple good weeks in a row. Hope to make it 3 for my co-host, Eric Froton of NBC Sports, the coach, Gene Clemons. I am Thor Nystrom. Let's go cash some tickets.